So today I have a box of Glads that I'm going to unbox. But Ian, we just came in. We've been like
Serina,
I literally was like, oh, like calling the Glads up here. Like, well, it's pouring and I'm all muddy because I was digging tulips.
She's fresh from the farm, freshly picked.
Yeah.
And she hasn't been cleaned yet. She's dirty.
I went to very last minute. I have an alarm that goes off on my phone at 15 minutes to live video time, and it was like going off, but I was like too muddy. I'm like, no, I have to finish what I'm doing. And by the time I like checked, it was like 7 minutes. Run.
Yeah. And then I had a time lapse going on the tripod.
Oh yeah, so I had to go to the bottom of the property.
So she was carrying the tripod and a big box of Glads, and she came in and she was like.
Okay, but Ian's here for a couple minutes, and then I'll get into the Glads. But I'm gonna get something to clean the lid.
Oh. Okay, so yeah, we're kind of like focusing on getting the farm all set up because really soon we've got a lot of tulips coming up, and not this weekend, but the weekend after we're going to do the first farmers market, and I think starting on Thursday is our plan. We're going to start selling roadside. So, the countdown is on to, actual farm sales for the year, which is really exciting. But
yes,
it means that
if you are local to us and you want tulips,
yeah, come get some.
Give me a ring because I have them.
But it also means that we got to get everything in the ground because, pretty soon our focus has to shift. So Serina was planting perennials like crazy last year where we had the zinnias, and the cosmos and
Okay, you keep talking.
Okay, you guys have
1 second.
You guys have something on your face. We just have to give you a little.
Way better.
That's better,
right? I have a greasy face, so it's like if I talk on the phone, then my camera is like, oh, what a beautiful Vaseline.
Well, this is my phone.
Yeah, but you also have a greasy face.
Oh. So the point is, Serina's been planting perennials into that flower farm area, what we considered the original flower farm area. And this year, the zinnias are getting the boot. They're going somewhere else. Well, there'll be some.
We have like plans for 5 beds of zinnias this year. They're
just getting the boot to somewhere else.
In the past, we do like 2.5. So.
Yeah, there'll be lots of zinnias.
Okay, so I saw in the chat. So Jennifer was asking you, how's the walk-in cooler going? And the reason why she's asking that is that in a video last year, you said that you'd have the walk-in cooler ready for spring, and then you're like, pause for comedy, 2022.
Well, it's already ready.
It's running.
It's running.
We have it on. I turned it on last night.
Yep. Because we have tulips to put in there. We have lots and lots of tulips. They've some of them. I mean, the ones that you picked, they actually look pretty good length. We were a bit worried about the length on a bunch of them, but
yeah, they're the tallest on the entire farm.
Yeah.
So, but when you dig them up, you get an extra 6 inches.
That makes a lot of difference.
And so, if they're only up 6 inches, they're 12 inches tall, which is plenty tall enough for a bouquet.
Mm-hmm. So how many Glads do you have?
Are we getting to it? Are you done? I thought there was maybe something you wanted to talk about.
Are you thinking of something specific?
No.
I was just gonna make jokes about how you were picked farm fresh. You kind of stole my thunder because you talked about how you just been running up here.
I don't know. Doesn't look too bad considering I'm like covered in dirt and like rained on.
Yeah. Rain. When the rain comes through here, it barely wets the ground. It'll be like, oh, it's gonna rain today, and then it'll be gone so fast. It'll be like a cloud of rain that moves by you.
Yeah, we're definitely running the sprinkler today.
Yeah,
it's definitely not like, oh, it's raining, so we don't need the sprinkler. Which reminds me, can you maybe bump the sprinkler?
It's off. Oh,
no, because I'm watering the perennials. So I planted all the perennials.
Did you get it all done?
Yeah. All the perennials.
I thought-
You guys were all so nervous. If I get the perennial, I guess that's not true because
one bag
have a
went to mush, didn't it?
Yes, one bag went bad.
So it's not like they're totally wrong.
Yeah.
Some of the poppies.
A bag of poppies went bad. And I guess I still have, well, now that I'm thinking about it, I have 2 bags. But Ian has to help me plant those. Because those involve like stand-up shovel.
The last one?
I forget what they are.
But
they're
big.
like big. They're big.
You got all the pots? All the stuff?
Yeah, all the stuff in pots planted. The only thing, and then I have some lavender because I don't know where I'm going to put it. And then we have to figure out where to put peonies and raspberries. So those might need to get potted so that we don't have to plant them right away. Yeah. And then we have a fridge full of lilies. But the lilies are going to get planted in succession. Oh yeah. Fatty just walked in here. When normally it's Bo who's the live video cat.
Bo's outside.
But Bo's outside. He's in the outbuilding. Oh, Jill. Thank you for joining the members. Which reminds me, I'm going to do this at the beginning of the video instead of at the end. So for everyone who's part of the YouTube membership, to do that, it's if you want to be my best friend, costs $5. That makes me sound very shallow. And if you want to be my soulmate, I mean that's an excellent deal because I think it's $20 is the soulmate cost. So but yeah, so to join, there's like a little join button on the main page. And then you get these fun little symbols beside you so that it makes me notice that you're part of the members, and we get emojis, we get special emojis.
Yep, so that's super cool in chat.
That I got to design. So when I tell backstories, you can put up the backstory emoji to make fun of me. And if Ian's looking especially cute, then you can put up the Ian in a flower crown, which I call Ian feeling cute, might delete later. But yeah, but the one activity that is like an actual thing, part of the membership, is we do a monthly live video that's members only. So I have it posted. This is an announcement for members. I have it posted. The way to get to the live video, it's on Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, is you need to go into the community tabs and get the link. It's a private video, so it won't pop up like these live videos do. So you have to get the link and click on the link. So there's a community post.
And if they miss it?
If they miss it, you can use the link to watch it afterwards. Yeah. But if you want to make it for the live, but yeah, so I have a community post for everyone to get the link, and I'll make another community post to bump people so that hopefully lots of people can see it. But this is me telling you it's there, so go hunt it out if you haven't seen it already, so that we can all hang out on Thursday.
I have some news. It's cat related.
Oh, are you gonna tell them? You haven't signed your contract yet.
I know. I gotta scan it.
This is supposed to be a secret. We were gonna have like a big reveal.
Okay. I don't have anything to talk about.
You're gonna save it for the video, or it's gonna be too hard.
I don't know what to do now. You put me on the spot.
Well, I don't know. You can do whatever you want.
I'm not saying that we're getting another cat, but I'm also not saying that.
That is exactly what Ian's saying. I agree. Okay, so do you have anything else, or are we going to talk about Glads?
The only thing I want to talk about is how last night I was laying on the couch. I was all tired. It was the end of the night, and we watched a show. And you're like, "I'm gonna fold laundry," and I had my feet on the couch next to you, and you're like, "No, that's my spot for laundry." And you pushed, and you made me switch around.
You're tattling in the live video.
And then immediately, this fat boy came over and hopped up in the exact spot where my feet were. And he sat there for the duration of you folding laundry.
Okay, so since Ian's trying to make you guys think I'm a bad person, I'm going to give some clarification to the story. So we have a couch that's shaped like this. Right? And Ian sits here so that he can put his feet out on the long part of the couch. And I was like, okay, I have like a space on either side of me to place folded laundry. But how Ian was sitting was he was sitting like this on the couch, right? So he had the whole L, and he was still putting his legs and giving me like this much space on the couch. So
You were keeping my feet warm. It was nice. I'm just saying that the exact same spot.
if you think that your legs are as long, if you think that Fatty is as big as your legs, then I'm sorry to tell you this, but your legs are double Fatty.
I feel like I'm being...
Okay, get out of here. Pass me my Glads. We're talking about Glads now.
Okay.
This is a Glad unboxing. Let's get to it. Let's talk all the details about Glads. Before we get
I'm excited about
your
Glads.
backstory, guys, to throw up your emojis that I specifically designed to make fun of myself.
Grab that fat boy.
Oh, okay, come here, Fatty. Oh, look how big this fat cat is.
Oh, what about one more bit?
Okay, yeah. So one more fat cat story. So we took Bo, our ginger boy, to the vet because he needed to get dewormed because he eats rats all the time. And they weighed him, and they were like, "Oh, he's really fat." They're like, "He's really fat," and I'm like, "Oh, like." He's fat, okay, yeah, but it's like winter. He like stays inside. He's getting outside. He'll slim down. And I'm like a little fat or like a lot fat, and they're like, no, he's like really fat. And
he's got a bidocket on it.
He gets a big winter butt.
Well, he's kind of got like big hips in the back.
Yeah.
So then
he gets curvy in the winter.
Yeah.
But we realized that with this 20 pound catch of the day, Fatty here. We have cat body dysmorphia because Bo seems so skinny compared to Fatty, you know. But Ian says that he celebrates all cat body sizes.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not Fatty's fault that all he wants to do is like never move and just
he literally doesn't move.
He just wants to sit. So, you know, who am I to tell him that he can't live his best life? So, okay. But he'll be happy.
So where I'm moving the water to is obvious?
Yeah. Okay, so Glad backstory. Thank you for giving me the emojis there. So I don't like Glads. I think they're really ugly. And like where we are, I know that in lots of different areas, the zinnias are kind of one of those flowers where people don't think they're special, people don't like them at all, and so you know they're kind of in everyone's garden and no one sees a lot of value in them. Where I am, zinnias are the complete opposite. Everyone thinks zinnias are amazing. Everyone is like, I've never seen a flower that looks like this. No one grows zinnias in their garden. They're very special. But Glads, not so much. Glads are, you know, you see them in the grocery store in these big bunches for $5. People don't even really bother to grow them in their gardens. And online, lots of people talk about how they're kind of this old-fashioned flower that, you know, everyone has these like really nice memories and really nice associations with. But here, more of the associations are that they're kind of like a cheap funeral flower. I think a lot of like funeral arrangements are done with the Glads. So in general, people, if I'm like, oh, Glads, like my local customers aren't like, oh, we're so excited. And when I've brought Glads down to the market in the past, they've been really difficult to sell. So last year so we made a video last year with Nicole from Flower Hill Farm. I know a lot of you guys know about her channel, but if you don't watch her, she is another flower farmer. She's out in New York, and she is, you know, kind of similar to us, kind of in the early years of developing the farm, and she loves Glads. She's like, oh, like she's like just super passionate about Glads. Oh, and she has a YouTube channel. I don't know if that was obvious. But yeah, so hearing her talk about glads all the time, I'm like, okay, like maybe I need to be more open-minded, just because maybe I don't like glads, so other people don't like glads, and I'm hearing it, but it's just reinforcing my beliefs. It's not necessarily a broad view of everyone in our area. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna give glads a go, but I'm not gonna buy just basic glads. I'm gonna buy really special ones. So last year we had 500 glads, and I bought these like really, there was like some that were like purples and greens, or this like deep, almost like a black burgundy. There was like a really frilly it didn't even look like a glad. It almost looked like this kind of tropical orchid in these like purple tones. So we had five different ones. Oh, and there was like a fuchsia. There was a fuchsia color. So there was like a lilac that was all frilly. There was a fuchsia. There was a black one, and then there was two that were kind of like these green and purples. And they should have looked different. But they looked really similar. I think that the sun is just like so strong here that they kind of bleached them out. And I had really good success with them. What I ended up doing with them is I used them with sunflowers. So I had like these massive glad stems, and they're so big, and I was like, I don't even know what to do with these. So I ended up doing this bouquet. I would have sunflowers that had really long stems, and I quite often used a double sunflower, or I used one of the different colored sunflowers that would pair really nicely with these different colors. And I do kind of 4 glads and then 4 sunflowers, and it made this, it's the type of thing that you could take home and it'd be a very vertical, very showy bouquet. But it was still, something I was able to do in the $20 price point. And then another thing that I did with the glads, which is something that I'd kind of seen on, like, from other florists on Instagram, is, so the glads, I'm assuming that most people are familiar with it, but they do this kind of like this long spike and the flowers slowly bloom. So normally when you pick it, there's flowers down at the bottom, but then there's this big, huge spike. And it's very difficult, it's very awkward to work with in a bouquet because, the stem of flowers could be like this long, and the flowers, some of these ones, the flowers were like this big, they were just massive. But what do I do with that when, all my other flowers are kind of lower? It's just, it's this weird tail that hangs out of a bouquet. So instead of just leaving it like that, I actually snipped off the tip and I turned it into kind of the shorter stem of just flowers. The nice thing about the glads is in a vase, they will just keep opening. You can clean off the bottom blooms as they die off. It keeps opening up. Maybe you'll get 12 days out of a bunch of glads. But most of my bouquets are kind of designed to be 7 to 10 days, and even taking that tip off, it isn't like the glad then became only 5 days. It still would last the length of the rest of the bouquet, and it looked a lot nicer, and it didn't look like glads. And so when I did that, they sold really well. They appealed to people who didn't think that they liked glads because it didn't have the look of a glad. So I really enjoyed that. It made me think, maybe there is some more potential for glads. And then the other thing that I learned last year is that, so glads, the problem with a lot of these bulbs is that you put the bulbs into the ground and then they all bloom in the same week or two. So, it's kind of like with the lilies. So I have a bed of lilies. They bloom 2 weeks of lily blooms and then they're done. Which, is great for the home garden. You can enjoy them. You have something else that comes on. Or, it's great if I have like 100 of them and I have 2 weeks and it's a special 2 weeks when it's like, oh, lily extravaganza. But ideally I'd like to have something that, is if I'm gonna have lilies, I would rather have lilies for 2 months and be planting them every 2 weeks so that they will bloom out across, a course of a month, kind of like what I do with sunflowers. Every 2 weeks I plant sunflowers. I always have sunflowers to pick. So with the glads I had last year, I didn't have any space for them. I planted a few of them because I was like, okay, I have a spot here, and then I had to wait until more space in the farm opened up so that I could plant, my leftover glads that I didn't have space for. And by doing that, I ended up having a succession. I ended up having the first planting of glads that bloomed, and then, 3 weeks later, because I planted my second batch of glads 3 weeks later, I had this next round of glads bloom. So I was like, if I do the same thing as I do with the sunflowers, the same thing I'm planning on doing with the lilies this year. Every 2 weeks, I plant out, 100 of these. It means that, I'll have 100 of them every 2 weeks throughout the course of the summer. So I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's try this. But I wanted to get something that was a little bit more affordable because the special glads that I bought last year were actually quite expensive. And I didn't necessarily need these big, extravagant glads that I had, especially when I cut them down to do them into the bouquets. I was like, it really would be nice to have a smaller glad, a smaller plant, a smaller flowering stem. So this year I bought, it's very heavy. I bought big bags of glads. My source for these is, they're very heavy, so I'm not gonna hold them up. My source for these is, LM Bowl & Sons Incorporated. So this is a company out in Ontario. And so if you are in Canada, this wasn't even like a wholesale company. Anyone could order from them, and they were super, super easy to buy from. I didn't have to order way ahead of time. I think I bought these a month and a half ago, and no, probably even less, probably like a month. I started being like, I should buy those glads 2 months ago, and then it took me a month to finally get organized. So these, they had an online store, I just put my order in. It was super simple. And then they kind of start shipping them once it's safe for them to go through the mail, because they are like a bulb. They're like a corm. So these, they can't be sent when it's freezing in the mail, or they may freeze. But yeah, so I really like the company. It's LM Boll, BOLLE. Yeah, and so they were really easy. And the price was great. So depending on the volume that you buy them at, the more you buy of the same thing, the more the price comes down. And then I think they had a thing, if you spent more than I got free shipping. There was if you spend this much money, you get free shipping. So I got free shipping, so there wasn't even shipping on top of it. And then the other thing, this is the thing that I was excited. This is why I wanted to order from these guys to try this out. So they have 3 different grades. And off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is, but I think it was grade A, and then number 1. Oh, thank you, Kelly. Kelly put the link up there. And then number 1 and number 2. And so what I ordered was the smallest size. And so I didn't order these because these were the cheapest, even though these are the cheapest. I ordered these because these are the smallest, and I wanted the small grade because the smaller they are, the smaller the flowering stem is going to be. So the ones that I have, I was going to bring some up to be able to do a comparison, but I had 7 minutes and I was like, I'm running, trying to carry this 50-pound box. But yeah, so the ones that I bought last year, which were the grade A, they were massive. They were this big. Really, really big. Right? And then this, they're almost, well, okay, I guess they're not that big, but they were about that big in comparison. They were double the size of these. But like I said, the flowers were too big. this I think is going to be the perfect size for me. And if I do save these, they'll get a little bit bigger for next year. So even if not every single one of the glads produce a flowering stem, because that's kind of the risk when you get, if they're a little bit too small, they might not flower. I'm confident that, you know, like 95% of these will flower, as long as I don't torture them too much by not watering them and being cruel. But yeah, so glads, we're zone 5 here. Some zone 5s, you'll be able to have glads over winter. You don't have to do anything. Here, the glads, they don't overwinter. The snow cover is gone, and then the ground usually freezes. So I can't get glads to come back. Maybe every once in a while, a few will pop up here and there, but you can lift these. And I did this last year. The problem with saving bulbs is you have to let the foliage, the way that the corm or the bulb gets its energy is that the leaves, you need to leave the leaves on and let the leaves die back naturally, because that then puts the energy back into the bulb for flowering next year. That's a little bit of a problem when you're a flower farmer, because as soon as something flowers, you want to get it out. You want to get it out of the space. So what I did last year with them, because I saved everything I had from last year, and I picked them, and then I left them for a couple weeks because I was fairly busy with stuff, and I didn't really need to get them out of the way. But I did need to get these like out of the ground before it came to fall. There's a lot of jobs to do in the fall, so we kind of had this like lull in like mid-August, and so I ripped them out, and I did kind of what I did for garlic. I ripped them out like fresh green leaves, and then I laid them out at like in the type of place where I'd leave my garlic to cure. I let the leaves kind of like naturally die back and slowly let the bulbs dry out. And then I cleaned them up. I kind of cut off all the dried brown greens, threw them into a crate somewhere that had, you know, good airflow, someplace that was like cool but not freezing over the winter. And they did really good. They look really nice. They look like they'll flower. I didn't have very many that I lost over. Daddy's like, what do you have? Do I have something good? He's like, why are you playing with that bulb when you could be planting me or petting me? But yeah, so with the glads, if you're like a zone 6, for sure, you can just leave them in the ground. But if you don't want to leave them in the ground, they're still worthwhile to lift and pull if you don't have space to overwinter them. You know, this, for me, these were 30 cents each. So if, you know, even if I sell these glads at wholesale for $1 or something, you know, even with the labor of having to plant them, harvest them and everything, at 30 cents for a bulb, you know, this is cheaper than tulips. So there's a good chance that you can make good money on glads even with having to buy them again every single year. But yeah, okay. What do I have in here? So what I wanted, so I have, oh my god, these are so heavy. I have 5 bags. So I could buy these by like a single. You know, I could have been like, oh, I want 10 of this and 10 of that, but I didn't want that because we're a flower farm. So what I did is I bought 200. I was like, I'm gonna get 1,000 glads, but instead of like getting, you know, 20 different colors and getting 50 of each, or even instead of getting 10 different colors and having 100 of each, what I wanted was to have, you know, the 200. So I am going to plant, you know, let's say I plant these 2 weeks, I mean, now that I'm thinking of it, 2 weeks apart, I don't know. I'll probably do 4 plantings. I'll probably plant some tomorrow, which is the reason why I was like, I better talk about these glads before I plant them out. But yeah, so let's say I'm gonna do 4 plantings of these. So I'm gonna plant 50 of these at a time. And the reason why I want to do 50 at a time rather than doing 10 at a time is, you know, if I use these for bouquets, and let's say I want to put like 5 stems of glads into a bouquet, if I only have 50 planted, you know, in that 1 week, that would only be 10 bouquets with 5 stems. That'd be 10 glad bouquets that have 5 stems. And that's really not that many. So it's better for me to have, just a few colors that I can, make a recipe for. It's better for me to make 10 bouquets that look the same. It's a lot more efficient for me. This was like one of the game changer things that I learned about being like a flower farm. If you have just like 5 of everything, every single bouquet is a lot of work. And if you go and you watch like, our harvest videos, like where, I'm making bouquets in the videos from last summer, it's not a very quick process. Because we're editing that down, right? So, and fair enough, I'm doing it slow because I'm walking through like what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. But if you watch those videos, it takes me a little bit of time to put the bouquet together, and I'm thinking about it. I'm like, well, what should I put with this sun? I like the sunflower. I'm going to use the sunflower. What should I put with the sunflower? Should I use this? Should I use that? I'm thinking for the bouquet, and the thinking takes a lot of time. But what you don't see in the videos is we film that segment when I kind of first go to work with the flowers, partially because the room always looks incredible when it's just like filled with all the flower buckets, but partially because I'm using the time, with you guys, like to think about what the bouquet is going to be. Then I put it into a bucket, and I like design, a couple bouquets. And then as soon as the camera's turned off, I look at that bouquet that I've designed and made, and then I make it, right? I don't even have to think. I'm like, okay, 3 sunflowers, right? Grab it. I'm just like looking at it, building it, and then it goes really, really fast. But it's that having to think, hey, does this yellow sunflower look good with this orange zinnia? Or do I want to do this yellow sunflower with this, green amaranth? Is this the look that I'm going for? That is what really slows down the process. So by having not very many options in this box, but lots of the same option, it's gonna make the workflow for me really, really good. And it's gonna make me like glads more. Because if I had a bucket of mixed glads, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do with these. I don't know how to work with these. It's gonna make me frustrated, and it's not gonna make me love glads. But if I'm like, I know exactly what I'm gonna do with these glads, because when I purchased the glads, I purchased them thinking how they pair really nicely with the flowers that I'm gonna be growing. It's getting rid of one of those like problems, right? I'm getting rid of a problem instead of making a problem for myself. Okay, and yes, I'm gonna succession plant them. I know I didn't really explain that super clearly. So I have 1,000 glads in here. There's 5 varieties, and each bag has 200 glads. So my plan is every 2 weeks I'm going to plant 50 of each of the varieties. So every 2 weeks I'm going to plant 250 of the glads. And the way that I'm going to plant them, because this is another thing that I did last year, and like people are kind of like, can you do that? And I was like, I'm pretty sure you can, and it worked out great. I planted them the same as how flower farmers do tulips. So I wasn't like, oh, here's a glad, and then here's a glad, and then here's a glad. Like the spacing on the glads, it was like, here's a glad, like here's a glad, here's a glad. The amount of space in the garden that it's gonna take for me to plant all these glads is like, to plant 250 glads is gonna be like this much space. It's gonna like be nothing. And then I saw in the comments there about staking them. Because they're going to be planted as this mass instead of just like one tall spike that could potentially, get the wind going in it, because it's this mass of them, they're all going to kind of be self-supporting each other. Kind of like corn, right? Like corn, you have a single corn, it's going to blow down, but you grow corn all together, you don't have to worry about corn blowing down because, they kind of all just hold themselves in space. So that is another advantage of doing them super tight. But yeah, they're super tight because I'm pulling them out anyways. I don't have to worry about them having space to perennialize and bulb up and spread. So even though this is 1,000 glads and that sounds like a lot, this plus the, I have like a crate, I have this many that I saved. It's probably gonna take like half of one of my beds, maybe a little bit more of one of my beds, and they're going to be a really great item because they're the type of thing that if, like I grow seedlings and I get to the end of the bed and there's like 5 feet of space left, I didn't grow enough seedlings because I had some of my seedlings die, be like, oh, perfect, I'll throw some glads in there. That'll be one of my successions of glads. So they're going to be something that's really easy for me to fit in. Okay, so we're going to take advantage of the fact I have Ian's cell phone here. I'm going to pull up pictures so that I can actually show you guys what I bought, because I'm really excited about the about the different colors. When I was picking the colors, I was trying not, because there was I love green, so I was like, I should only buy green ones. But instead of letting myself get sucked in to like what I liked, this year with these glads, I really tried to be like, what's gonna work out well with the other colors that I have? What are gonna be things that, I knew these paired really nicely with sunflowers, so I was gonna be like, hey, what would be like really good for like pairing with sunflowers? I had so here. This is one of the ones that I got. It's nori. Okay, so I'm gonna put this up, cover my face so it'll focus. So the really pretty like lilac color, and then it has like the white throat. Like I said last year, I had I'll cover my face again. So I had a lilac one last year, and it ended up being really, really pretty with my yellow double sunflowers. That like color combo was really good, and customers really, really liked those colors together. So I was like, okay, get another lilac, and then with the variegated coloring, I think that's something that will sell really well. Okay, easy to work with, easy to sell. I'm laughing. The next one's a green one. So after I just said that I didn't let myself buy all the green ones, I did actually let myself buy one of the green ones. Okay, so there, Green Star. This is another one that I got there. And looking at these pictures, it's kind of, I don't know how, it's kind of focusing on my dirty transplanting fingernails. Okay, so I'm gonna hold this up for a second. See how there's like some that are super green, and then there's some that are like more of like a pale creamy color. I suspect that mine are probably gonna be a lot more pale. The sun is so strong, and what I found with the glads last year is that the sun actually bleached out the colors. So, even with that like burgundy one that we had some that flowered just a bit after this like crazy heat wave that went through, and they like the colors on them were like really, really like sun bleached is kind of the best way to describe it. But the greens, like the green, I love green flowers. The reason why I love green flowers is that they make this kind of like tropical palette when I mix it with like fuchsias and oranges, and it's really nice to mix, and they look distinct. Oh, thanks so much, Jennifer. These like stickers always entertain me so much. That one's really cute.
Oh, God.
Yeah, Bells of Ireland. I see some. Yeah, I wanna try that out. Fatty wants out if you can let him out. Yeah. So even though I want to grow all the greens, and I shouldn't only buy green glads, they definitely have a space, and they're definitely something that's easy for me to use. Especially I'm gonna do those like shorten the stems to then have them in the mix BKs. Was there anything?
Are those all the blocks?
I know, these are Gladiolus.
The blocks remind me of Kitten for some reason.
Oh yeah. We're not telling anyone.
Yes, we
It's
are.
a secret.
Yes,
It's a
we
secret.
Are. Yes, we are. We're getting a kitten.
Leah, it's a secret.
Yeah, we're getting a kitten.
Just letting
He's
all the
big
secrets
now.
out.
He's big now. We're gonna name him Benny.
Okay. Okay, this one is, I'm looking it up. And there's like a whole bunch of different colors that are coming up. Some of these are like purpley colors and some of these are pink. So I don't know. Okay, so the next one is Indian summer, and this is kind of like a weird, like dusty, like a mauve color almost. But then there's like some bright pink colors that are showing up, and yeah, like so here's like there, like you can see it's kind of a whole range of colors. Yeah, I mean, like brown. Yeah, totally. If it ended up being brown, that'd be incredible. And like brown flowers are one of those things. Brown flowers are one of those things you think people wouldn't want, but they really do. And I get it because having brown flowers for me to work with, I'm always like, oh my god, if I could have more, if I could have more of these brown flowers. They're just, you don't realize how fun they are to work with, right? You think of like brown as being this like muddy kind of like not classy color, but it's really interesting the ways, you know, like I do a lot of the browns in the fall, right? And a brown and a yellow and a red is this like really great fall palette. But the browns, even with like greens and pinks, can actually, it looks really sophisticated. So yeah, I don't remember what this actually is going to look like, but if it is brown, that'd be awesome. I mean, if it's pink, I'd be into pink too. The color's Indian summer, so we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see. I know, like I thought I ordered a pink, so I don't know. Okay, the next one is plum tart. Oh yeah, and this is like a fuchsia. Right? Like that's like super vibrant, super bright. This is plum tart. And that's one of the things that I like about Glads. They can have these like really saturated colors. It's these like fuchsia type tones, like so the plum tart. They're like, I don't know. What's my point? They're hard to pick up on camera, right? And so when I know this from like trying, like I film stuff to share with you guys, and I'm like just like, oh my god, this color is so incredible, and it's just like, like you look at it, it's like it draws the eyes. It's like so vibrant. It's like hard for your eyes to like take how much color there is in. And then I'll shoot it with the camera, and it'll almost look like blurry sometimes. It'll almost look like you can't see the details on the flower that you can see like in person, just because maybe like the colors are just like, they're just too much to translate onto the pixels. But those are always the colors that in person are like so dramatic and so fun. And so when I see those pictures where it's, and this is kind of the perfect example, it's kind of confusing, right? Like when I look at the picture here, and it's kind of like, it doesn't look real. It's almost like, it's like, I don't know, is that like, I don't understand what it's gonna look like in real life. But when I see pictures that kind of do that same thing that I see some of our most vibrant flowers do when I film them, I'm kind of like, oh, this is probably gonna be really dramatic in real life. And so like looking at this, I'm like, yeah, that kind of like rings a bell. Like, so I'm really excited to see how these are gonna turn out. And yet again, I said this before, I'm gonna say it again. Just because they look like this in other people's pictures doesn't mean I'm gonna have the same luck. With the Glads, with our heat and our like 100% sun, I find they get very bleached out. So, like I'll have to see, like maybe one of my first successions, which is gonna bloom out in the heat of July, isn't, with like summer solstice, the most amount of sunlight hours. Maybe they're gonna look kind of bleached out. But because I'm gonna have these successions, some of the ones that are gonna bloom kind of more in August or maybe in September, the less daylight hours, maybe they'll have have a better look, have more of that richness and color. So even if the first cut of these doesn't look like that, doesn't mean it won't still potentially be super exciting. Looking at these pictures have me excited. All right, and then the last one is Royal Class. Okay, let's see. Oh, I'm excited about this. I couldn't remember what the colors are. So orange, like an orange one with like some variegation. It looks kind of like maybe the throat is red, but then there's also some like yellow details. It's not really, the picture isn't translating super well, I think, from screen to screen. But yeah, that's really exciting. That orangey color, I think that's going to be really fun. So that's Royal Class. I think that's going to be really fun to play with. Yeah, salmon. Yeah, like an orange or like a salmon. We have some of these snapdragons on the farm, and they're called like an orange, or sometimes they're called a bronze, and they'll have these like tones where it's like they're orange, but then they have like pink tones, they have yellow tones, and they're really dramatic. So if that Royal Class one kind of ends up looking kind of like that, that'd be really exciting. Okay, so let's see. There was nori. I can't remember now. Oh, it was lilac. So there was the nori that was the lilac. There was the green. There was the Indian summer, which looked brown in those pictures, but I don't know. That seems like too good to be true. And I remembered ordering a pink. So I think there's a chance that the Indian summer is going to be a pink. And then plum tart, which was that fuchsia color, and then Royal Class, which was orange. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really, I have this. Oh, how many? I have this many. Oh, it's so heavy. Oh, I have this many. I have so many I can't pick it up. 1,000. A thousand's a good number, right? Like I said, if I plant 50 of them at a time, I'm hoping that they'll be a little staggered. Usually, like one variety will flower and then the next variety will flower. So with the ones I had last time, I could plant them every 2 weeks, and they kind of, in the first week some flowered, and then some other ones they flowered the week after. So I kind of got a 2-week window. But if I'm putting 250 in, and so that's like, let's say we get 120 a week, even if I only get 100 a week, if some of them don't flower, or the stem, I have issues with the stems, and I use 5 stems, that's like 20 glad bouquets a week. That's exciting. And then to have them for plantings, so then I kind of have them like July and then into September. So yeah, I'm really excited, and I feel like that I know the numbers are crazy, right? And I kind of use it to make the videos a little bit more interesting when I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk about 1,000 glads, when in actuality it's like, no, I got like 5 varieties. It's not that exciting. It is exciting. 1,000 makes it sound like, oh, but the other thing too is like, to put 1,000 glads into your landscaping, that's going to be a lot of glads. But to have 1,000 glads, like I said, right, that's 20, that's the ability to have 20 bouquets that have glads in them a week for the summer. And we're talking, like, our goal this year on the farm is to be able to sell $2,000 worth of flowers a week. So that'd be 100 bouquets. So 1,000 glad corms is only, the components to 1/5 of my weekly bouquets. So, then, and to sell 100 bouquets and sell $2,000 is, that's not a super ambitious number, even. If we're able to do that, so for context, we're like scaling back. We're not like pushing super hard for sales this year. We're trying to get organized this year. We're trying to do more with the flowers to set ourselves up for better success next year. To sell the $2,000, we have about a 25-week window. If we do that, that means we make $50,000. But our big goal for the farm is to be able to sell $100,000 gross every year, and $100,000 gross, after, because we'd have to have an employee to do that much, and so after an employee and after all the expenses and after everything, it's not a massive amount of money. It's kind of like, it's a little bit more than minimum wage, but it's not like we're getting rich being farmers type numbers. So sometimes the farmer numbers are a little bit deceiving. Like glad spilling everywhere. Oh, and I saw I said this at the beginning, but so the size that I got the smallest ones. These are number 2. And I'm really excited about the smaller sizes because I want to do I want smaller flowers. So I'm excited to see how that's gonna work out. Okay, so that's everything I had to say about glads. I can't stay super long because I have to get back outside. I have tulips that I need to pull. And I'm looking out the window and it stopped raining. So this is like a perfect window to get back to it. But let's do some questions for a little bit. Thoughts on foxgloves. So I will never do foxgloves. Foxgloves, I'm pretty sure, are a biennial. But the main reason why I won't do it is they do have disease. They have like pest issues here. I think they don't like our heat. We get these like the crazy heat that comes in. So it's not on the list of like easy to grow, drought tolerant, sun loving flowers. There's so many other things that can have a similar look. I bought a pack of 75 glads for $15. That's a pretty good deal, right? Because these are were 30 cents, right? Oh, it doesn't make a difference with corm size, bigger bulbs, more stalks. So I've never had a glad send up more than one flower spike ever. And like the only thing that I've ever had the glads do is send up really big spikes compared to like the smaller ones send up a shorter spike and smaller flowers. So what I'm looking for is shorter spikes, smaller flowers, and that's why I'm going for the smaller corm size. But I know that they can that they have a risk of not flowering with being the number 2 size. So, but I still think they will. Do I grow Scabiosa? So I've never grown it before. This is the first year I'm going to grow it. I direct seeded some, a while ago. Nothing germinated because we had all this super cold weather. But then the last thing I did before I came in is I am growing Fama Scabiosa, and it's a perennial Scabiosa, and so the flowers are a little bit bigger. So I'm also trying that out this year too. So I'm really excited to see how it goes. Why glads instead of snaps? So yeah, 100%. That's like kind of my position on glads too. Like I like snaps better, right? Because the thing, I said this at the beginning, I don't really like glads. They're definitely not my favorite look. I feel they have a different look though. They have the same use. They're a spike. I use them in the same way. I'm not going to do glads in a bouquet with snapdragons. I do glads instead of snapdragons. But yeah, for me personally, I'd rather snapdragons any day. Tips for first time glad growers? Give them a try. They're super easy. If I can grow them, anyone can.
I'm gonna go turn the water off unless you want me to move it somewhere.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, you want me to move it or just turn it off?
Yeah, turn them off. Miniature glad, smaller spikes. Well, so I don't want like mini, right? Like I don't want like little like landscaping shorties. I want like a cut flower stem, right? So I want it to be like 2 feet tall. I just don't want it to be like 4 feet tall. I had some last year that were like insane. So and like the smaller, so these are like I said, these are half the size of like the bigger ones that I bought. They're also half the price of the bigger ones, right? So if I can buy the cheapest ones and they give me a flower that's actually easier for me to use and therefore easier for me to sell, I save money on buying it, and I also end up with a more marketable product. So, you know, I'm giving it a try. Maybe they're too small. But I think it's worth a try. When will be the date for last succession to get harvest? So I'm gonna plant some tomorrow, is the plan. It's still a little bit early, right? Like I still am at risk of frost. I already planted some a couple weeks ago into a crate in the greenhouse. But yeah, so I'm gonna plant some now. I guess we're like into May, and then I'm gonna plant them every 2 weeks. And I don't like my first planting last year bloomed after the heat wave, which was end of June. So I feel like kind of like beginning of July. And I don't think I was planting it any earlier than now. So I don't know. I feel like they bloom pretty quickly, like kind of like May, like, kind of 2 months between like putting them in the ground and then blooming. So if I'm planting them every 2 weeks, and I'm going to do 4 plantings, that means 2 months. So that would be all of May and all of June. So then I'd plant them in beginning of July, the last succession, which means then 2 months. They'd be all of July, all of August, and then they'd kind of be planting in September. I don't know. This makes a good point. Maybe I should divide it into 5 plantings, and I should push it, right? Because we have like frost-free weather usually all September. Maybe I can get some to bloom beginning of October. I don't know. I don't know. Right? I don't know how far I can push them, because some things are daylight sensitive. So they need a certain number of daylight hours in order to bloom. And I don't know enough about glads to know if that's true. What's the value of a glad stem? So last year I was selling them for $250 for the stem. And that was like, everyone was getting a good deal at that because they were like fancy. If I was snipping them off and they like were smaller, maybe $2, but like $250 is pretty fair for a nice looking glad. They're definitely not. They're like a focal. They're not like a cheap one. Yeah. So snaps. So someone's asking about germinating snaps. They're a pain in the butt. They like light to germinate, is what I've heard. They also like take a long time to germinate, and they need like perfect humidity. So I don't just sprinkle them on the surface. I usually put a little bit of dirt or some vermiculite over top of them, just to keep the moisture in a little bit better. But yeah, like I broadcast the seeds because I usually get probably like a 50% germination rate. And I don't have time to like fuss around with the snapdragons, and I'm growing like thousands of them this year. So I was just kind of like 5,000 pack, like sprinkle the seeds. And if 1,000 of them came up, like that was fine. Will you dig up the bulbs in the fall? Okay, so I already said that. So what I did last year, and it worked really good, because I don't really want to wait until the foliage dies back and then like dig them up, and it's like cold and it's miserable and I'm trying to dig up other things and I'm busy doing other stuff. What I did last year is they kind of like sat for a few weeks after they flowered, which is good, right? That's like the leaves like getting energy, putting energy in. And then I was like, get them out of there. I'm over them. Like, I don't care if the bulbs don't do anything. And because they were green, we just ripped them out. They literally pulled out, no problem. And then I laid them out to dry them and cure them like I did with garlic, and it seems like it worked pretty good. They maybe are not going to be like as beautiful as they would have been if I dug them in the fall. You know, maybe I lost some of them. Maybe the bulb isn't going to be as like strong. Maybe it's going to make smaller flowers, you know, which would make me happy. But like, you know, for me, for the workflow, if I lost 50% of them, but I could do that at a time when I have time to handle them, then it would be better than for me to have to fuss around with them in the fall. So normally what you would do is you wait until the foliage dies down and then dig them. But you know, if you're comfortable with them like not making it, you can give it a try. What I did too. Are you starting in beds or crates for the first couple of weeks? So I did a planting in a crate in my greenhouse. And I did that just because I put them in a greenhouse where it's filled. And so they're just kind of like sitting in the pathway. But I'm going to plant them tomorrow in the garden. We are fairly close to last frost date, and at this point I don't think it's gonna like freeze the ground cold enough to like if they start growing in the ground. I don't think it's gonna come and do -5 and like freeze the bulb. And it will, you know, it's gonna take a bit before they pop out of the ground. So if I put them in the ground now, you know, in 2 weeks from now, the tips start to pop up, and we have a frost. You know, a week from now, if the tips aren't up, the frost isn't going to affect them. So I'm willing to put them in now. And like I said, I'm doing successions. So if they die, it's like whatever. The next round is coming. I'm just scrolling through the comments. I plant zinnias on top for double product. Mine, I don't know. I guess they bloom fairly early. But for me, like timing wise, they would be really awkward to try to like plant on top of. For me, here. Because they kind of bloom like into the summer. And for like most of my succession, like to plant after they finished, they'd really be shading stuff out with how big their leaves are and everything. So I don't know if that would work for me here. But like I said, what I do is I plant them so tight that it's like they take up hardly any space, right? Because I don't need them kind of like in the landscaping. I just need to cut them out. So, you know, I plant them super tight and they did fine. They can handle down to the 20s. Okay, well that's good to know that they have like a little bit of frost tolerance. Okay, I'm through all the comments, or through all the questions. Yeah, so I don't know, like, I'm not, I guess in conclusion, I've now grown, I bought 1,000 glads, and I've grown, you know, I grew them, and I definitely made money on them last year. I sold enough to like, you know, more than, I paid for the bulbs and I paid for the labor, and the bulbs on the ones that I bought last year were expensive. I think they were about 60 cents a corm for the ones last year, because they were like fancy double varieties, and they were like the big, huge, massive ones. These I paid 30 cents each. So these, it will be a lot easier for me to like make my money on them. Though, when, you know, for me as a flower farmer, these being 30 cents, the other ones being 60 cents, isn't like, oh, I only need to, if I sell it for 50 cents, I make money. The labor is like the main cost, right? Like, you know, my cost on these is probably still like, you know, my cost on the other ones was $1.30, $1.60 because of the labor. You know, my cost on these is going to be, you know, $1.10, because the, you know, the labor costs a lot of money. But yeah, you know, they even though my area isn't super passionate about glads, even though I am not over the top in love with glads, I could really see how they work, right? And even though I'm in an area where I can't overwinter them, I can't perennialize them, you know, I have to plant these, and I either have to buy new ones every year, or I have to go through the hassle, which is, there is a cost, right? To pull these and to store these, probably like, you know, 30 cents. The work to pull this and to store this, it's probably going to cost me more than 30 cents. This entire box cost me, what? Let's see. This order was $315, and I didn't pay shipping. It is $315. It probably cost me more than $315 to get these out of the ground and save them again. You know, for me, it might actually cost me less money to just buy another box of these next year and just till these into the ground, or just let them rot over the winter. But even with all that, you know, like that's a lot of things working against me for glads, and I still think glads make a lot of sense on my farm. You know, and even like going back to the point of, you know, why have a glad when I can use snapdragons as a spike? You know, like I think they still make sense, right? Because I can make a bouquet with a glad. So like I said, I'm gonna, you know, every week I'm gonna have 20 bouquets that have glads in them. I'm gonna make 100 bouquets every week. You know, I'm probably gonna have 60 bouquets that have snapdragons in them. There is a value for having, you know, this chunk of bouquets that have glads instead of snapdragons. They look really similar, but they do look different, right? And having maybe that little bit of difference is the thing that's going to pull in another customer. You know, just because the majority of my customers don't like glads doesn't mean that there aren't customers out there who do like glads, right? So, you know, so far, you know, I've done fine with just selling snapdragons as my spikes in bouquets, you know, but maybe this year coming down, having those 20 glad bouquets, you know, maybe there was 10 customers that I could have had in past years with glads, and I passed over them. They're going to come, they're going to be excited, and me having glads every single week is, you know, now I'm going to create 10 new long-term customers that are going to be coming back again and again. And by doing that, you know, if I want to sell 1,000, if I want to sell 100 bouquets a week, and, you know, I get 10 people who are passionate about glads, I've just created 10% of my business. You know, obviously, like saying there's going to be 10 like weekly glad customers is like wishful thinking. That's like, but you know, it's those small successes that you build on as a business that leads to your long-term success. So even if it's, I get one steady glad customer, and she loves glads, and she knows I have glads every week, and she comes back, you know, that one glad customer, you know, it really steamrolls or snowballs for years to come. And she tells other people that she loves me, you know, she comes back year after year. So, you know, these little changes, if they work, and you stick with what works, it can lead to a lot of success. So I'm not in love with glads, but I'm really excited about having them this year, I guess is my point. Okay, I'm just gonna check back through here. How many corms per square foot? I mean, these are tiny, right? Like a foot. Like that's like that. I don't know. I put a lot. Like 25 of these probably. You know, that's why I was like saying that, like, it's not gonna take very much. It's not gonna take very much space to plant 250 of these. You know, like you know, this much. Like my entire arm's width, which sounds like a lot, but like, you know, my beds are 50 feet long. you know, what did I say? If there's 25 per square foot, my beds are 3 feet across. So that's 75, and I'm going to plant 250 of them. I only need 4 feet, right? 4 feet of bed space, of my 50-foot bed space. You know, and that's what I was saying. I have some of these beds where it's just, I have a couple, I've like, didn't make it to the end. I'm just going to throw the glads in there. You know, it's easy to find space to sneak in a lot of these on the farm. And it's really fast to plant them out, because what I'll do is I'll just dig, you know, I'll just dig shovelfuls out, you know, kind of make like a pit, just pop them in, and then just throw the dirt back on top. And then they, you know, I don't even have to worry about like, oh, the dirt's all loose and fluffy and they're gonna fall over, because they're gonna be so dense they'll self-support themselves. Okay. So I'm gonna go, because I have to go get back to pulling tulips. We don't have anything edited.
Mommy?
But yeah. Yeah, I will. Okay. But yeah, so we will have a vlog. We've been filming some stuff, but we haven't started editing it yet. But I'm thinking kind of like for Friday, we'll have a vlog coming out. And then get pumped, because we're not going this weekend to the farmer's market, but we're starting sales. So for our next vlog, because the vlogs kind of come out a week after, just because we have to film it and then edit it. But probably the next vlog that we do, which, you know, won't be like this week, but next week, is going to be all about this coming weekend. We're going to be selling tulip bouquets. You know, it's going to be first sales of the year. We're not going to the market, but we're going to be setting up the farm stand. You know, it's gonna be really fun to get back to the selling. And then Mother's Day weekend is going to be our first week back at the farmer's market. Which, like, I'm like, I can't believe it's like, you know, we grow to sell, right? Like, we love to grow, we love it all, but there's something just so incredibly satisfying about the selling, right? Because it's like seeing all of your work. So I'm just really excited for Mother's Day. You know, we're gonna have so many tulips. Like, the timing has worked out really nicely. You know, we have lots of branches like off of the trees. I think we're gonna be able to put together something that's like really nice. All the moms are gonna appreciate. So, you know, there's some really exciting content that we're gonna have coming up. But thanks for hanging out. And one more reminder, if you are a member, Thursday, 5 p.m., look for the community post. You need the link. So we have that live coming up. Yeah. And thanks for hanging out, guys. And we'll see you next week in the live chat. Okay, bye.